I feel really pissed off. I feel really upset about what occurred in the Senate last night, with the eight moderate Democrats deciding to fold and give Republicans what the votes that they needed to be able to reopen the government, and essentially getting nothing. What was your reaction as this was unfolding?
I had the same frustration, right? It was anger, I will
Yeah.
say, but it was just unfortunate. Like after we were on a high from Tuesday last week, and then we kind of went down this path, right? But you know, look, the thing that we need to realize, we need to stay focused on, right, is that this is really about Donald Trump and Republicans and their lack of empathy, sympathy, and it's just their flat out cruelty for the American people to not only raise their health care costs, but in this whole process during the shutdown to take food out of the mouth of kids, refusing to pay SNAP and telling the states not to pay it. Um, and even going as further down, kind of as we're hitting the end here, uh, the president having no, like I said, empathy or sympathy for the air traffic controllers, right? And
Yeah.
basically just yelling at them, get to work now,
Yeah.
and not really kind of uh, realizing their situation at all, and the fact that they've been working, you know, you've gotten multiple paychecks now without any pay, multiple pay periods, I should say, without any pay, and but still having to show up to work every day. So
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
really on them is where our anger should be frustrated or turned towards, and just the fact that they are. Again, he's done all this so that he get to give himself and his billionaire friends tax cuts, and it's the American people who are going to pay for it.
Yeah, agreed 100%. There's no question that ultimately the root of this evil originates from MAGA and originates from Trump and his intentions. I can't help but feel like exactly what you were pointing out. You know how last Tuesday we had this high
Mm-hmm.
of the Democratic Party. It really reminds me of the 2016, 2020, 17 season as an Atlanta Falcons fan. Right, you're up 28-3 in the Super Bowl. It seems like you haven't won. You finally put all the pieces together that needed to happen in order to end this drought of not winning a Super Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and then Tom Brady shows up,
Yeah.
and 28-3, ends up becoming, what is it, 34-28, and we
Mm-hmm.
lose the Super Bowl. And that was the exact same feeling last night. I get a notification, hanging out with my girlfriend, and I'm like, they're gonna reopen the government. And I just immediately, that high that I was riding from last week just went out the door. So I think that a lot of Democrats are kind of in a similar situation, and they definitely are frustrated with Republicans. There's no question about that. But we're seeing some of that frustration begin to pick back up to where it was, I think, following the 2024 election results, with Democrats being really upset with their elected officials, including these eight Democrats. It was Dick Durbin, Jackie Rosen, John Fetterman, Catherine Cortez, Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, and Tim Kaine, and then the independent Angus King, who sided with Republicans and essentially got the same proposal that was on the table at the start of the shutdown. That proposal being the promise of a vote in the Senate on extending the ACA subsidies and a reversal of government firing from October 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2026. It's basically a 3-month reprieve from these RIFs, or these RIFs as they're referred to. Um, I mean, is it really that simple, that the deal that was on the table the entire time is the deal that ultimately these Democrats decided to go with?
Look, I can't go into their mind or what they were thinking or what their thoughts were. I'm sure they've all done multiple interviews by now, kind of talking
Yeah.
about what their thinking was. Would I have done what they did? No. When it comes back to the House, am I going to vote for it? No. Um, you know, I can see the big picture, right? And this is really going to cause it's going to have devastating effects. People are going to have to make tough decisions. Do I pay my rent or do I get health care? And there are people who have, that are not going to be able to afford, right? And people who have very serious things. I mean, whether it be they need health care now, or they're getting cancer treatment, or they have other, long-term issues, and their health care cost is going to go up, by thousands. And it's not going to be affordable, and they're probably not going to get the treatment that they need in order to fight, or they're going to have to, when they get sick, they're going to be going to the emergency room. It just kind of adds on to the overall healthcare cost for everybody. And it's just unfortunate that we don't, more people aren't getting this big picture and figure that we need to help provide this healthcare for the people.
Yeah. And on that note, I think that we have heard some different responses as to why Democrats decided to reopen the government. I actually have some of the quotes
Now,
here.
Don't say Democrats in general, like you're throwing
Sure.
this all into the pot there, right? It is,
Yeah.
there were senators that made a determination that they were going to vote a certain way.
Yes. No. And that's 100% right as well. The other thing to point out about these senators is that none of them are up for re-election in 2026, which, a lot of pundits at this point have pointed out, which I think also just goes to show that they understood that this was going to be an unpopular decision. I'm trying to pull up the quotes here from some of these Democrats in the Senate. But in the meanwhile, I wanted to ask you about, obviously we can't jump into their minds, and we'll get these quotes pulled up in a second so that we can see what they're thinking. There were two things that jumped into my mind as to why they might have voted this way. The first one is the SNAP benefits. Obviously, as you've said, as we've explained, the root of this lies in the Trump administration. Mm-hmm. And one of those immoral decisions that Trump has made is to wield food and hunger as a weapon of politics. He's done that very clearly. As you've said, he's decided to ignore court decisions basically telling him that he has to pay back these SNAP benefits. And then threatening states that have paid back SNAP benefits. They've allocated some of their funds that maybe they had it, in a reserve, or they were, going to use it on another project, or they were investing it somewhere else, but they have allocated those funds to pay these SNAP benefits. They are now saying that those states are going to face consequences if they don't take back those funds. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing that I think might have played a role in why these senators decided to flip is travel, and the fact that in less than 2 weeks we're going to be entering the busiest time for traveling of the year. So what are your thoughts? What are some of the things that maybe you could say, this might have been the rationale behind it?
I think all those things have been said, right? Obviously, I think you look at somebody like Tim Kaine. There is the state of Virginia. There are a lot of federal workers there in the state that were not getting paid, that still having to work. A lot of them were furloughed, but furloughed or not, the rent still comes. They still got to buy groceries. They still got to do things, and I think that probably played into his, his thinking. Same thing maybe with the Nevada, maybe, I guess both Nevada senators went that way too, right? But the travel, I don't know. Some of the interviews I heard, I didn't hear anybody kind of mention, Thanksgiving or the holiday season. But, still probably could have played a factor in that. Definitely, I think the air traffic controllers, and the TSA agents, right, having to do their job without pay was definitely probably something that some people might have thought about. But, again, you'd have to ask them or rely on them, for their answers and to what they're thinking. Fetterman, who knows what the hell he was thinking, right? He was never in support of it anyway, and he's got obviously some bigger issues, but it's it's unfortunate, right? I think the Democratic base still wanted us to keep fighting, and we will keep fighting. it's not over yet. I'm not gonna, like I said, it's got to come back to the House. I'm not going to vote for it. Um, I'm pretty sure there are going to be some Republicans strong-armed, into supporting it, as they have with everything else that's come across, the House floor. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and these are some of the quotes explaining why they decided to vote the way that they did, some of the immediate reactions, at least, that they had after casting their votes. One interesting, I guess, just whole response and just the news kind of revolving it have been what is it? Jean Shaheen's response to this. Her quote was that this agreement gives Democrats control of the Senate floor on one of our top legislative priorities, extending the enhanced premium tax credits to make health care more affordable for millions of Americans. So I want to take a second before we talk about some of the other interesting things, including her own daughter, who's running for office, saying that she would not have voted for this. But can you explain a little bit about what exactly the Democrats are getting or are claiming? The Democrats, the Senate's, the Democratic senators that voted for this are claiming to have gotten in exchange for reopening the government?
I read some of those quotes too, right? And there were a few, I think maybe like two or three of them that, like you said, claim that somehow this was gonna, make healthcare more affordable because now there was going to be a chance for a vote on the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, and they'd be able to kind of push this forward. But the reality is that's never going to be brought to the House. Speaker Johnson's never going to, even if it did somehow miraculously pass the Senate, it would never be brought up in the House of Representatives, and Donald Trump would never sign it into law, right? And I think this is why, the House Democrat position this whole time had always been about let's negotiate and come up with a deal where both sides can agree to and kind of move forward with that, and that a plan that would be agreed upon and move forward and supported by everybody. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that didn't happen.